All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Arkansas College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here will be doing a 2023 preview and prediction for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Looking at this coaching staff, Sam Pittman is back. He's 19-17 through 3 seasons. Dan Enos replaces Kendall Briles. And the defensive coordinator will be occupied by Marcus Woodson and Travis Williams, a big-time addition from Gus Malzahn's staff. Looking at this offense, Nick, this is a team that did some great work in the portal. They also returned, Sanders and KJ Jefferson. I mean, this is going to be one of the top 1-2 punches in college football. Sanders, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's been unbelievably productive in this backfield. Very elusive back. Good runner between the tackles, some good speed. He keeps the feet moving. He just runs with an edge, and his durability has been great over the past couple seasons. Rashad Dabinion, he's going to back him up, some quick feet. He can gear down in a hurry. He's a physical runner. He's also hard to arm tackle. He's not the most explosive guy, but at 5'10", 211, I think he certainly brings good physicality. Pittman is an offensive line coach that preaches physicality, and he's got two of those guys in the backfield. KJ Jefferson, Nick, I don't think he exactly progressed the way we imagined last year, but he was still incredibly effective. 6'3", 242. He's a Cam Newton-like runner in terms of size, speed, how he gets to the edge. He's aggressive downhill. That's all expected with that size. He's also got a really strong arm. He's good in play-action scenarios. I think his accuracy and touch when it comes to throwing the football needs some improvements. But I think this is a great basis for this offense. They only get back 4 starters, but the ones they do get back, Nick, very impressive for this offense. Another 2 of those will be on the offensive line. We'll talk about them in a minute. But, what's your general analysis of what they got in the backfield?
I agree. Returning 4 starters on offense is not the biggest number in the world, but you look at the 2 main stars they're returning, KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, that's a really solid guys to have on your team. KJ Jefferson, I really love him as a quarterback. I think there's a lot of talent here. Definitely has a different sort of interesting feel to him as a quarterback in the SEC. 68% completion percentage is a fantastic number. 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last season, 2,648 yards through the air. Very talented quarterback that's comfortable in the system. He's been here for a couple of seasons now. 640 yards on the ground, 9 scores for him last year as well. So he's a dual threat quarterback and fits perfectly. Him returning was a huge get for the Razorbacks. Sanders as well, fantastic running back. You highlighted his accolades, but he can also catch the ball as well. He had 28 receptions for 271 yards and 2 scores last year. He's a very talented back, one of the more underrated backs in the SEC. Gonna have a lot of spotlight on him this year as he gets that kind of attention from the rest of the nation. They did a lot of good portal work here, adding weapons on offense, and this backfield's solid with Sanders and Green and Dabunion as well in the backfield. So I think there's a lot of talent here they can work with and kind of develop a nice, fast-paced offense.
Most concerning part of this offense is probably wide receiver. You look what they did in the portal. They lost Malik Hornsby, a quarterback. They owed Jacoby Clure as well. They also lost 3 of their top 6 receivers. Keyshawn Jackson, Warren Thompson, Trey Knox. Those are some pretty big losses. They added Tyrone Broden, though, from Bowling Green, 6'7", 210. That's pretty unique size, Nick. He's also a long strider, though. He's great downfield. Really impressive athlete. Some good ball skills in the red zone. Great at adjusting to the football. He does have some inconsistent hands that have plagued him, and he's pretty limited yards after catch-wise. But getting downfield, Arkansas, they're going to look to stretch the field a little bit more, and I think Broden will certainly help in that area. Andrew Armstrong from A&M Commerce. This guy's 6'6", 189. Great speed. Good at attacking inside off his release. Some good leaping ability and concentration. He's a playmaker, especially in the open field. I think those 2 additions are huge for them. Isaiah Sategna, he's a Fayetteville native. I thought he would get involved more last year as a former top 150 recruit. He did not that much, but I think this year he will. He's another one of those speed guys that can make an impact on screens or potentially downfield at 5'11", 173. In terms of depth, this receiving core, they have a lot to prove, but I do think those 3 guys I named right there, it's a pretty serviceable unit for this football team. Isaiah Tilsla, another transfer as well. It's not the worst, but it's not going to be anywhere at the top of the SEC. It's going to be towards the bottom of the conference, but I certainly think this is a very serviceable receiving core considering the nature of this offense. They want to, ground and pound and run the football, so I'm really not that concerned about it.
I'm not either. I think this is a serviceable wide receiver core. I like Armstrong coming over. I think that's a nice step up for him. Gets a good transfer here, veteran player playing at the lower levels. Broden as well. Solid player to potentially fight for that wide receiver X role. Those 2 guys will split snaps there. Stagan as well, like you said, Fayetteville native. I'd like to see him involved, redshirt freshman past season. Didn't quite get involved as much as I would have hoped, but he has a lot of talent, untapped potential. I mean, he is going to be a guy that could step up. He only ended up playing in 4 games last year with 2 catches, but he has a lot of potential to step up and be involved in this offense. I think there's some talent here. They made some right moves in the portal. They added some depth they needed to. They got some interesting freshmen coming in as well. So this is definitely potential to see this wide receiving core step up and make some plays.
Now, this offensive line is going to be one of the nation's better units, I would say. There's going to be numerous variations for this starting 5. So, whenever the season gets kicked off this fall, we'll see who they roll out. Dalton Wagner, right tackle's gone. Ricky Stromberg at center. And the other tackle, Luke Jones. 3 sound starting replacements at tackle for those two departures. Devon Manuel, 6'9", 334. Tykees Crawford, 6'5", 325. And Joshua Braun, 6'6", 335. What are they feeding these guys, Nick? This is some absurd size. That doesn't include the starters that are already penciled in. And Brady Latham, this guy's an impressive pass blocker, some good length. I think he latches on and drives pretty well, some solid agility. Doesn't always keep his feet moving, so he definitely needs to work on some fundamentals. He's 6'5", 307. Bayou Limmer, he's going to move to center, it looks like. He's great at getting to the second level. Very stout pass and run blocker. Great finisher with some good hand placement. Like his awareness. Some power rushers can certainly back him up, and his balance is iffy. So Latham and Limmer, these guys are probably going to battle for all conference. They do have some technicalities they need to improve on, but I'm really not that worried about these two guys. Amari and Harris at guard. He's got some great size and length, improved attitude and finishing ability. Love his strength. His movement certainly needs to be improved a little bit. He's 6'7", 340. Again, Nick, where are they finding these guys? This is absurd size for your offensive line, regardless of who you roll out there.
I mean, this makes a lot of sense for Sam Pittman, right? Former offensive line coach is kind of where he made his bread and butter here. He's going to want to build the trenches up and certainly build the offensive line. I mean, these guys are ridiculous. 6'7", 340, 6'5", 307, 6'5", 302. These guys are huge. I love Limmer in the middle there at center. I think that's a perfect spot for him. Move him over. I think Brady Latham, very underrated guard, one of the best in the SEC. Watch him break out this year. I think he's going to be a star to keep an eye on. Harris as well at guard. I think that's a really talented player. They brought in some pieces from the portal as well. They didn't just sit on their laurels and keep the guys they had. They're already talented. They brought in Braun, who was a good transfer. Wiggins as well, another solid transfer. These guys are huge. It's going to be tough to beat this team in the trenches. Defensive lines are going to have a headache all season trying to get after KJ Jefferson. He's going to find himself a ton of room to work with in the backfield, and it's going to give Sanders some running lanes as well. This offensive line is fantastic. They're going to live and die by it.
Now, they certainly had some inconsistencies up front, so I think that's something they need to change. And then less turnovers. They had a turnover margin of 0 with 18 takeaways and giveaways. A- for me. The receiving core, certainly, again, they're not the greatest in terms of depth, and some of these transfers are certainly have to prove themselves in this tough SEC conference. But considering, again, the nature of this offense and the running style, it's exactly what they want. It's exactly where they want to be. So I'm going to say A-. This is exactly what Sam Hartman wants to do. And on any given Saturday, it's going to be tough for teams to line up and play this team from a physicality standpoint. So A- for me. I love the potential of this unit. How do you feel?
Yeah, I like the potential a lot for this. I think there's a lot of potential for this team to step up. The yards per game last year was great, 471.2 yards per game, 15th right in the nation. That passing game a little bit to be involved.
Elite offense, the SEC, I think A- is a great
grade for this offense so far.
Looking at the Arkansas defense, last year when we did our Arkansas preview, I had this team at 6-6, and I also said they would have a horrendous pass defense. I was right on both of those marks, but I didn't think they would be the nation's worst, Nick. They almost gave up 300 yards per game through the air. I do love the work they've done in this secondary, though. As a whole on this defense in the portal, they added 6 guys. They're all going to see some significant time, especially in that back end. Shockingly, they lost Jordan Dominic, which is going to be, a significant loss to their pass rush. Jalen Catalan struggled to stay on the field. Durability, he's out. He's going to Texas. Miles Slusher in the secondary did not emerge. He's transferred over to Colorado, I believe. Simeon Blair, he was, as expected, was just terrible for them. Dead last in pass defense, Nick, which is crazy because they were 6th nationally in sacks. The pass rush was a lot better than I anticipated it would be, but it didn't make a difference for this pass defense. They only returned 4 starters, but I'm probably going to be higher in this defense than a lot of people. I think you look at this defensive line, Teron Carter, he's back from injury. He was the star for them last spring. He was consistently wrecking havoc in the backfield. Cameron Ball, he was good in run support. Eric Gregory, I'm a fan of his also. This is a formidable trio on the interior in terms of, 3 techs. The depth is certainly going to be tested a little bit. You look at 2 defensive ends they added in the portal. Trajan Jeffcoat from Missouri, first team SEC in 2020, has a nice swim move to disengage, some good movement for his size of 6'4", 270. You like his motor. He's a high-energy player whose productivity dipped this past year, and he's been an inconsistent tackler. I think they could certainly get some things out of him. John Morgan as well from Pitt. Great lower body strength, a good initial punch, a stout build, impressive quickness. I love his aggressiveness. This is another relentless player. Comes from Pat Narduzzi's staple there for the Panthers. I like linebacker as well. Chris Paul. He was a very good reserve for them, a hard hitter, an instinctive player, get downhill in a hurry. Really liked his abilities as a pass rusher. We'll see what kind of role he takes on this year. Alongside Antonio Greer comes over from USF. He was a very sound tackler. He tracks the ball very well sideline to sideline. He was a productive disruptor for the Bulls. I like his leadership he's going to bring to the table. I think overall this is a very sound front seven, Nick. I think the addition of Travis Williams, he has been with Gus Malzahn since 2013. This is a guy who's going to implement a lot of quarters, a lot of man coverage. He's going to look to unleash this defensive line a little bit more to be more productive. They're going to, shy away from that 3-8 defense that they use. They're going to use a lot of nickel often, which we'll talk about here in a second. But what are your thoughts on this front seven? I think it's going to have a good year.
I like this front seven a lot. I think Chris Paul Jr. is a fantastic piece to return at linebacker. 6'2" total tackles, 8 for loss, 4 sacks this past season. So I think he's a really talented piece to have back. I like the work they did in the portal as well, bringing in John Morgan, from Pitt. I think he's a really talented player to have. A lot of nice career statistics for him coming over from Pitt. I think Cameron Ball, I think Eric Gregory, these guys are some seriously talented pieces on the defensive line. This defense was good on the defensive line last year, right? They had a lot of sacks. Their secondary is what really let them down. So I think this is a good kind of plug and play, get some guys in to replace some of their leading tacklers from the front seven who have left and graduated and moved on, like Bumper Poole, Drew Sanders. These guys have left. Big shoes to fill. Those guys had a ton of tackles. But I think there's a lot of talent here to step up. I think Antonio Greer's got potential to step up, make a big impact early on. Like I said, Chris Paul, I think he's a fantastic leader for this team and kind of emerging and going to be a potentially veteran throughout his career at Arkansas. I like this front seven a lot. There's a lot of potential here to get after the quarterback and make some nice plays.
You look at the secondary again. I just talked about how bad they were last year. He gave up 3,800 plus passing yards last season, but I absolutely love the work they did this offseason. Some big-time transfers. They picked up 3 of them to pair up with Quincy McAdoo. He's an athletic player. They'll likely make that full-time conversion to cornerback from wide receiver. Some good potential there for that position. Dwight McGlothern, this is a guy I labeled last year as having great ball skills, and he proved it last year. He backed that up. Willing tackler. He's not an overly aggressive player. He's a great trailer, and he's pretty capable in press. The 3 transfers, I think they're going to make a massive impact. Jaheim Singletary from Georgia. This is a guy that was a former 5-star, makes his way to Fayetteville, some good length. He's an aggressive player with some great instincts, a fluid runner. I think, downfield he mirrors very well. Lorando Johnson from Baylor. He's going to play that cornerback or, nickel slot role for them. He's a good leader. I think he was a great coverage asset for the Bears. He was an awful tackler, though, so he certainly needs to clean that up. And I think the biggest addition here is Al Walcott. I believe he had 10 tackles for loss last year for the Bears. He fires downhill. He can blow up blockers. He's great at making plays in the box. He really thrived in a similar scheme at Baylor. 6'2", 219. He's a great tackler. Very good as a versatile defensive back. He impressed in all facets of his game, Nick. He is, a gunner mentality type of player. I think he's going to be a massive addition to this football team. Hudson Clark, another guy who's been around a long time. Cover one looks could certainly plague him due to his lack of athleticism, but I think this kind of a scheme change here, they won't see as much cover one. Horrendous tackler. He doesn't have the best closing speed either, but he's good at getting, leverage and positioning and coverage. He's pretty sound in that aspect. Overall, I think the secondary last year, I expected them to be awful. They were, but I think this year I'm going to change my stance significantly. I think they'll be a lot better if they can stay healthy.
There certainly is room to improve for the secondary. I think Dwight McGlothern is the guy that returns the big key piece. He had 52 total tackles last year, 4 interceptions and 10 pass breakups. He was really the only bright spot and was a terrible secondary. He's a leader. He gets after the ball. I like him a lot. I think this is a good kind of piece to have in there as a senior leader for these transfers that come in. I like the guys they add. I think Walcott's got a ton of potential there. I think he's a good piece that they add in the portal. Overall, I think this defense is going to improve in the secondary. I'm not as excited about it as you are. I think there is still a lot of room to grow, and I think a lot of question marks remain for me. But there's a lot of potential with the secondary to improve. And, you can only get better than worse, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a B- because what you said is certainly accurate. I'm certainly excited for their upside. I'm still going to be cautious because it's going to be hard for that pass rush to be as good as it was a year ago with Dominic departing. Jeff Coat comes over, but he didn't have the best of last year. John Morgan, he was flawless in week 1 against West Virginia for Pitt. He kind of fell off the rest of the year. So I think there's great upside, but I'm certainly going to have a more cautious approach because they were still very poor against the pass, and that pass rush is certainly not probably going to be an asset for them this year. So kind of working against them here, I think in a sense, but I do think the upside for this unit is tremendous. In terms of grading, I go that B- because of the potential. I think they could certainly work their way up to an A by the end of the year. How are you feeling? A little higher on point, a little lower?
I'm a little lower. I think C+ is kind of where I belong. I have to see it before I believe with the secondary here. I know I love these pieces added, and I think they have some potential to grow. But when you're the worst in the nation in pass defense last year, you're gonna have to prove to me on day one that you can kind of improve this and get after it and cut down on those yards per game. 294 yards per game through the air is just a poor number. I really need to see a lot more of the secondary to be impressed.
Now looking at the schedule preview and prediction for Arkansas, the offense did a good job of adding some new pass catchers. The nation's best QB and running back duo, potentially elite size on the offensive line. That unit should progress very well. I like the potential up front for them. Will they post a top 10 rushing offense once again? I think they certainly will. I love the portal ads and the effort of Sam Pittman, has given to this defense, and the addition of Travis Williams. I love the additions in the secondary. I just raved about that. They added some great skill and aggression. I think they will progress by at least 50 to 75 yards less allowed per game. in all facets, especially against the pass. I think the defensive line may struggle a bit when it comes to adjusting to this new scheme. I think certain individuals will have to be heavy lifters up front. Morgan being one of them, Jeffcoat, Eric Gregory, even good duo at linebacker. I think the front seven depth will definitely be tested. The biggest thing for Sam Pittman, though, is they have no signature wins under his belt. I think they've been close a handful of times, but that's why I have them losing games like LSU and Alabama. I think even Ole Miss may even trip them up. These road games are very tough, and that's where all 4 losses come, Nick, is on the road. I think some of these games, like the Florida one and the Ole Miss one, could certainly go either other way. 6-6 was my prediction last year for Arkansas. It was right on the nose. I'm going to go 8-4 this year, and I certainly think they could be at the 9 or 10 win mark for all the reasons I just said.
I agree. I think that 9 wins is probably where I'm going to put this team. I think they're going to get the Florida win. I know the Swamp's a tough place to play, but Florida, there's a lot of question marks there down in Gainesville. I like this team. I know the secondary has a lot to prove. I think the offense has a lot of potential to put up a ton of points and outscore some of these teams. When you play in the SEC West, it's going to be a gauntlet, right? You got to travel to Tuscaloosa, travel to Baton Rouge.
Right, these are all tough places to play.
Also got to host A&M, Auburn. We have no idea what we're going to get out of those teams this year. So this is definitely a tough schedule when you look at it. And playing BYU at a conference is not a cakewalk, right? That's a BYU team that's got some talent, making the jump up to the Big 12 this season. So I think this is a great schedule that Sam Pittman has put together. Arkansas made a huge step forward by getting to a bowl game last year, winning a bowl game. They want to continue to build on that, get back to a bowl game, win another bowl game here. I think this is definitely a great starting point for Pittman. He's continuing to build a culture out there in Fayetteville and put together a roster that can compete long-term with the portal ads. I like where this team is going. I think 9-3 makes a lot of sense for me.
Now, if you look at the schedule in terms of quality of projected wins, it doesn't really seem to be out there. Once again, no signature wins. Even if they go 8-4, potentially win 9 games with a victory over Florida, how happy would these Arkansas fans be? But for the same reason I just said about lack of quality of wins.
I think they would be a little disappointed, right? This Arkansas fan base is hungry for quality wins. It's been a long time since this team has picked up any marquee wins. It's been, better part of a decade where this team has been kind of towards the bottom of the SEC. They gotta go out and win one of these big games to really help the fans out and make them, less hungry for a win. I just don't see them beating Alabama or LSU. That's gonna be a tough ask on both ends of the table.
It should certainly be fun to watch. As always, Nick, I appreciate you joining me here to discuss the Hogs.
Absolutely love previewing the SEC.
This is going to be it for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.